Okay, so let's dive into this Claressa Shields win. I mean, imagine being the undisputed champ in not one, not two, but three weight classes. It's pretty unbelievable.
It really is unprecedented when you think about it.
Yeah.
No other boxer, man or woman, has ever done that. Undisputed in 3 different weight classes in this 4-belt era.
Yeah, it's amazing. You have to hold all 4 of those titles, the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, to even be considered undisputed. And she's done it 3 times now.
3 times.
This win over Danielle Perkins back on February 2nd, I mean, that just sealed the deal. It put her in the history books.
Definitely cements her place. But what's really fascinating to me is how she got there. We're not just talking about raw power here.
Yeah.
She's so strategic. It's like she's playing chess in the ring. We were looking at those articles about her fighting style before this. Did anything stand out to you about how she approaches a fight?
Oh, absolutely. In that 3rd round, that right hook that rocked Perkins, textbook power and accuracy. But then I read that she went into this fight with a torn labrum in her left shoulder. I mean,
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and I was just like, how is that even possible?
I mean, you think about it. The jab is so crucial in boxing. And with a torn labrum, it's got to be so difficult to even throw one effectively. Most fighters would never even step into the ring with an injury like that.
But not Claressa. She just shifted her strategy, focused on those power punches with her right hand, and used her footwork to stay out of trouble. I read that she was doing tons of therapy and icing just to be able to get in the ring that night. Talk about mental toughness.
Oh, yeah, that's incredible. It really shows her adaptability. I mean, she knew that injury was a challenge. But she adjusted her game plan, didn't rely on that jab as much as usual, really maximized what she could do with her right hand, leaned into her defensive skills.
You could see it in the judges' scorecards, too. 100, 89, 99, 90, 97, 92. I mean, even with the injury, it was a pretty decisive win.
Yeah, for sure. But that one judge had a 97-92, which means Perkins did have a few moments in there. I'd be really interested to go back and see how Shields adjusted mid-fight, because Perkins definitely started to gain some momentum as the fight went on.
It's interesting you say that, because I was reading this piece from a boxing analyst, and they described her style as this calculated aggression. It's not just about throwing punches. It's about knowing when to strike, how to control the pace of the fight.
Exactly. She uses those feints and counterpunching. And I know not everyone listening is a boxing expert, but those are techniques you use to deceive your opponent, exploit their openings, draw them in, and then you counter with precision. It's what makes her so effective, especially against larger opponents.
Like Perkins. Perkins had a definite size advantage going into this. But Claressa just neutralized that with her movement and timing. It's like she turns her opponent's strengths into weaknesses.
You got it. And that's where the calculated in her aggression comes in. She doesn't just go in there swinging wildly. She analyzes her opponent, figures out their patterns, and then boom, she exploits them.
It makes you think about some of the other big names in women's boxing. You've got fighters like Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Sinisa Estrada, incredible athletes, all of them with such different styles. But there's just something about Claressa's approach that feels different.
I know what you mean. She's a master at adapting to each opponent. Think about Savannah Marshall, who Claressa has said she wants to fight again. Marshall is a powerhouse, really relies on that straight right hand.
Oh, yeah, she could throw. So how would Claressa even handle that? If Marshall lands that right, it could be lights out.
Well, in their first fight, Claressa used her speed and footwork to stay away from those power shots. Frustrated Marshall. Forced her to make mistakes. It's a risky strategy for sure. High risk, high reward.
Yeah.
But it paid off for her.
And that's what makes these potential matchups so exciting. Hannah Gabriel's, Franchon Cruz-Dezurn, they all bring something different. And watching Claressa figure out the puzzle of each opponent is just fascinating.
It really is. And we can't forget about how these fights impact women's boxing as a whole. The sport has gotten so much more popular in recent years, and Claressa has been leading the charge.
It's about time, right? For too long, women's boxing was seen as this niche sport. But these athletes are proving they belong on the biggest stages. They deserve the same respect and recognition as the men.
Absolutely. And Claressa has been so outspoken about things like pay equity, raising the profile of women's boxing, and her success is showing in the bigger purses, more media attention, more opportunities for other women in the sport.
She's not just winning fights, she's changing the game. And doing it all while carrying the weight of her hometown on her shoulders, Flint, Michigan. That victory was extra special because she fought in front of a sold-out crowd in her own city.
Wow, can you imagine that feeling? 6,000 people all cheering for you? Knowing you're representing not just yourself, but your entire community, that must be incredible motivation.
You can hear the emotion in her voice in those post-fight interviews. She's a fighter for sure. But she's also a daughter, a sister, a friend, a role model for so many people in Flint.
Yeah. That's what makes her story so powerful. It goes beyond the sport. It's about resilience,
Yep.
overcoming adversity, proving that no matter where you come from, you could achieve anything.
Okay, so we've got this amazing win, a truly historic moment, all these incredible potential matchups on the horizon. Where does she go from here? What's the next chapter in the Claressa Shields story?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the answer is this. She can go wherever she wants. She's earned the right to choose her own path.
So she's at this crossroads. Does she stay at heavyweight and keep dominating? Does she move back down in weight and try to win more titles? Does she go for that mega fight with Chris Cyborg and maybe shake up the entire world of combat sports?
Right.
It's pretty wild to think about.
It is.
It feels like she's on top of the mountain looking out at all these different paths. What do you think, based on everything we've talked about, what's the most likely route she takes?
Honestly, it's tough to say. She has mentioned wanting those rematches, maybe to solidify her legacy in the weight classes where she's already made history.
Yeah, to kind of prove those wins weren't a fluke. But then there's that wild card, Chris Cyborg. Now that's a whole other level of intrigue.
Yeah, that's a whole different ballgame.
A crossover fight with Cyborg would be a spectacle for sure. It wouldn't just be boxing anymore. It would be a global event.
No doubt.
But it's also a huge risk. I mean, Cyborg is a beast in MMA.
Oh, yeah.
Known for her power and aggression. It would be a completely different type of challenge for Claressa, one that would force her to adapt her skills in ways we've never seen.
Definitely.
It's what makes this whole thing so fascinating. Claressa's at a point in her career where she can choose her own adventure. She can chase history, settle old scores, or step into the unknown and test herself against a totally different opponent.
And that's what makes her so compelling to watch. She's an inspiration, not just for athletes, but for anyone who's ever faced a challenge and refused to give up. She's living proof that anything is possible if you have the talent, the drive, and the belief in yourself.
And that's why she's such a fascinating figure, someone to watch and follow and learn from. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with this feeling of excitement and anticipation, even a little bit of awe. What's next for Claressa Shields? We can't say for sure, but we know it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be a story worth telling, a fight worth watching, and a legacy that will continue to inspire for generations to come.
It's like she turns her opponent's strengths into weaknesses.
Yeah, exactly like you said. It's calculated. She's not just going in there throwing punches. She takes her time. She analyzes her opponent, figures out their patterns, and then boom, she exploits them.
It makes you think about all the other big names in women's boxing right now. You've got Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Sinisa Estrada, all incredible athletes with their own styles. But there's something about Claressa's approach that feels different.
Yeah, I see what you mean. She really is a master at adapting to each opponent. We've got to talk about the impact these fights have on women's boxing as a whole. I mean, the sport has blown up in popularity in recent years, and Claressa's been at the forefront of that.
It's about time, right? For years, women's boxing was treated like this niche sport. But these athletes are proving they belong on the biggest stage. They deserve the same recognition and respect as their male counterparts.
100%. And Claressa's been a huge advocate for that, speaking out about things like pay equity, raising the profile of women's boxing. And her success is translating into bigger purses, more media attention, more opportunities for other women in the sport.
She's not just winning fights, she's changing the game. And she's doing it all while representing her hometown, Flint, Michigan. That victory was extra special because she fought in front of a sold-out crowd in her own city.
Oh, wow. 6,000 people cheering you on in your hometown. Knowing you're representing your whole community, that must be an incredible feeling.
You could hear the emotion in her voice in those post-fight interviews. I mean, she's a fighter, obviously, but she's also a daughter, a sister, a friend, a role model for so many people back in Flint.
Exactly. That's what makes her story so powerful. It's more than just boxing. It's about resilience, overcoming adversity, proving that no matter where you come from, you can achieve anything.
Absolutely. So she's got this amazing win, a historic moment, all these incredible potential matchups. Where does she go from here? What's the next chapter for Claressa Shields?
That's the question on everyone's mind. And I think the answer is simple. She can go wherever she wants. She's earned the right to choose her own path.
So she's at a crossroads. Stay at heavyweight and dominate. Move back down in weight and chase more titles. Go for that mega fight with Chris Cyborg and potentially shake up the whole world of combat sports.
So many options.
So many options. It's tough to even imagine. It feels like she's on top of the world right now, looking down at all these different paths she could take. based on what we've talked about, what do you think is the most likely?
It's so hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, she has mentioned wanting those rematches
Hmm.
to really solidify her legacy, especially in the weight classes where she's already made history.
Yeah, those unfinished business fights. Like, she beat them once. But maybe she wants to prove it wasn't a fluke, that she's really the undisputed best.
Exactly.